Oh, how good, how sincerely good it feels to actually be back. I can honestly say I'm so happy that I can be back making some cool Frostpunk content for you guys. I think this time around we'll be covering some stuff later on during the week. This is just a little video about me going through some of the stuff that's not actually been happening in my life. You know, the corona thing's been taking over the world, but that hasn't stopped us from making good content, has it? No, it hasn't. Here are some beautiful images from Frostpunk. I hope you all are having a beautiful time at home with your families and you're staying safe in these troubling times. You know, as captains of amazing cities within the Frostland, we find creative ways to keep our people going and to keep the cold at bay. Sorry about that, my phone went off. Anyways, this is just a short live stream of a couple of the things that have been going on. So, on the Discord side of things, we were having a bit of a discussion as to this discussion has been going on for the past few, let's call it the past 12 months. What is this discussion really? The discussion is about the actual location of the Frostland and where is it that the game actually takes place. Some people saying it's in Canada, others are saying that it took place in somewhere up north. But what we do know is that the general idea as to where the game takes place is somewhere in the Arctic area, whether it be in Canada or sections of Iceland or Greenland, but that's the general area as to where everything, from what we understand, takes place. What about the deep freeze? I covered that in another video long ago, a couple months ago. I explained it multiple times. Some people say it was because of meteors. Some people say it was because of something Tesla did. But I'm sitting down here to you telling you that it all started with volcanoes. Volcanoes are one of the main causes of the deep freeze. As a matter of fact, if you check it, volcanoes are actually the things that instigated the deep freeze in the first place. A lot of people will tell you otherwise. But this is just saying, look, and I'm telling you the exact truth as to how this thing actually started. The deep freeze, anything anybody wants to tell you about it, anything else that kind of doesn't make sense to you, all of this took place because of volcanic activity. Simply because we had a situation where there was a series of eruptions that were taking place over a couple of years, and that drastically changed the global climatic conditions of the entire planet. And well, my friends, there was really nothing we could actually do about it. All we could do was just prepare for the worst, and if the worst came, we would be able to handle it. And that's the truth. People will tell you otherwise, but that's exactly what happened. The deep freeze came quickly, but we had warning signs from the little ice age to the first snowstorm. All those things are actually covered multiple times before. So all of these things came together to give you the Frostpunk universe. However, the writers are capable of coming up with some crazy ass things, and then we just have to fit that shit back into lore. So, you know, but if they came up with it, basically it is lore, but then you have to fit that in so the timeline actually makes sense again and the stories all connect. So how does it work? Well, the first established city within the Frostland, as far as we know, was Winterhome. And along with Winterhome, or maybe during or within the same time period, probably Tesla City. So those two cities might have existed within the same time period, within the same area. On top of that, we also know that the last autumn takes place before New London, which is the first story, Make a New Home. So TLA is a story that takes place before the deep freeze took over. So Winterhome was essentially a military outpost. That was the central area of research and so forth. And TLA was basically another city that was nearby. And the job of the individuals working on that city was basically to create a space that could then be occupied by a large group of people should the worst come, which actually did. In addition to that, the land dreadnoughts were not actually used until the deep freeze fully took over. They were used in some small capacities, like for example, Winterhome, and hauling of certain resources, certain areas, or the moving of certain materials. They were used for that purpose, but they weren't used to an extent fully until the chaos really started to take over and the ocean started to freeze. That was when people started to, as I like to call it, move away from the cities. And they came to this new region that had not actually been fully populated, which is the Frostland as we know it. And we do know that a lot of the Arctic animals, or the animals used to dealing with winter and that kind of stuff, existed within this area and were capable of surviving any of the conditions that normally other animals would not actually be able to survive if they were not adaptable to such conditions. So, in a sense, this is just basically me going through some ramblings and some ideas. Some people are saying that you should build a city near a volcano. I mean, building a city near a volcano is probably a terrible idea. As much as people might tell you it's a good idea, it's a terrible idea. Building underground as well is another terrible idea, because the ice expands and breaks the rocks apart, and when the ice is heated, that ice then melts, and then you get the picture. You can have a catastrophic collapse, you can have explosions in the tunnels. So it's best to be inside of a comfortable house that is above the ground. Other things. Why is it that the generator is built the way it is built? Well, before TLA actually released, we had a video, me and Blood Mage, and we explained a couple of the stuff. But here's the gist of how this thing works. So the idea is to have large percentage of the superstructure below the freezing line. So they dig a huge hole all the way down into the ground to get this thing settled in to be below the freezing line, so that no matter what happens, it can function normally without anything actually affecting it. Then there are layers put on top of that to allow the steam to come back up and the other functions of how these systems work. I'll have to do an entire separate video and some research to actually go in depth with that kind of topic, and then I'll get one of my friends from the Frostpunk community and we can have a nice little chat about that. But for now, this is just me rambling because I haven't done a video in a couple months or so, and I feel I should actually shoot some content for a bit. So probably tomorrow or sometime this week, I'll actually make a cool ass freaking video. I'll see you guys in the next one.